Hello, everyone, and welcome to another meeting of the Directors' Corner sessions. We're contacting you from the 61st Thessaloniki International Film Festival. The Directors' Corner is a brand new initiative that's a partnership, let's say, between the international program and the Agora, which is the industry event of the Thessaloniki International Film Festival. We're very happy to have with us 3 directors at the moment. We're waiting for 2 more. But without further ado, let me introduce Elpinίκη Voutsá-Rεντζεποπούλου, Τζάνις Ραφαηλίδου, and Γιόχαν Κάρλσεν. They each have a film in a different category in the festival. And here is another one joining us now, Nora. And I would like, before I ask everyone to introduce themselves, okay, let's wait for just 3 seconds before. Hi, Nora.
Hi.
We just went live. Hi, Iván.
Hi.
We have just gone live on our YouTube channel. This is Nora and Iván, the 2 directors we've been waiting for. So before I ask you to introduce yourselves and say a couple of things about your films, I wanted to let you know that this is the format of this conversation was scheduled to be a discussion amongst yourselves. So I'm here to accommodate this discussion, but if you feel like you have something to ask one of the others, or comment on something that you've just heard, or if you've seen their film, you have a question or a query, just feel free to, pop in, unmute yourselves and be part of the conversation. You don't need permission or something like this. It's not that formal. So, Elpinίκη, would you like to go first?
Hello, I'm Elpinίκη Voutsá-Rεντζεποπούλου. I participate in the film festival of Thessaloniki with the movie Who Will Be Eaten. It's my first movie, it's my first feature film. I try to be a director. I am a cinematographer and editor. Yes, we have to speak for the movie also, or it's something we're going to do after? Okay.
No, please just share a few words about what the film is about, the story.
Okay, the film has to do with the refugee crisis and how all the people that were solidarians to all the refugee people, how are the relationship between the refugees and the people who try to help or to be near them? What is the role of European Union to this refugee crisis? And yes, I also try to involve the Kronos, the myth of Kronos, to all this film about how the Kronos was eating his children, like the war is eating children, and try to combine all this myth with the refugee thing.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. Janice?
Hello, everybody. Well, I'm the director of azar. azar is in the international competition. It's my first feature. And it's a film we made in Greece. It's a Dutch co-production, but it's shot in the kind of Greek landscape. Although it is a film that doesn't want to be very kind of site-specific. It's kind of timeless and universal. It doesn't try to reveal a particular place. But I'm mentioning that it's a film that is set in Greece because it really has to do with the anarchy of the landscape, incidences that they're kind of autobiographic. So the roadkill, the stray life, the hunted animals that laying dead in the landscape are all elements of a story that is both kind of lived through my personal experience and research as an artist. But also it's something that became really a fiction in an attempt to talk about life and death, humans and animals as one way to observe the landscape and co-inhabit the landscape. So it has, I think, it's a film that starts with a story of a couple but slowly kind of it drifts away from the main characters or from any characters really, and takes you to another place, which is about looking closer, looking what we often bypass, what we haven't learned to observe. And usually that's a non-human life that belongs to others, bodies that they're very different to ours. I think that's pretty much kind of the context of the film. Yes, that's it.
Thank you very much. Johan?
Hello. Yeah, my name is Jokhán Kárlsен, and I made a film called Death on the Streets, which I made together with my wife, Micah McGee, who produced it. I directed it, and we wrote it together. It is a very simple film about a young father who lives out on the great flat plains of the United States of America, and he is working as a farmhand, and he has no work to do because the work has disappeared out there because it's become increasingly centralized and industrialized, this work. It is a very specific story, quite concrete, that we made with all available tools at our hands. We went to the place and used both the locations, the people we could stay with, and the actors that we could find in and around the landscape there. I myself am from cold, dark, social democratic north. I'm from Denmark. My wife, who's the producer of it, is from this landscape of the United States, and I got to know it with some mixture of falling in love with my not yet wife and fascination of everything American that you have sometimes when you're from Europe, and specifically being from north of Europe. I very fast gained an affinity for somewhat of for the anarchy and the disorder of the United States, the way I met it, because if I were to ascribe that system something noble, I would ascribe it, and very much in the contrast to the system I come from, it is that the system lets people fail, which is sometimes something that our system doesn't let people do. And maybe there's an argument to be had, maybe there isn't, to what this presence of the opportunity of failure means for the life we live. And it's of course an old discussion, but old because it will always be relevant. And anyway, that's the contrast, me from the social democratic, well-functioning north, falling very much in love with the characters and the places of the very uncinematic, bland, and quite often stereotyped Great Plains of America, where there really live some very good people who are both comical and absurd in their insistence on of independence and self-reliance, these old American cliches maybe, but just as comical and easy it is to make fun of these people from the well-functioning Northern Europe, just as much you also learn, as you do with all people that you first laugh at, you learn that they're actually risking something that you maybe are not risking in your own life. So I found them to be somewhat heroic for me. And we tried to make a simple story of a unemployed farm helper who, falls through the system until he's a homeless person in the United States, which is a very, very straightforward trajectory, which is abundantly common. And so I say, it's a mixture of a very simple story with a somewhat anarchic, primitive approach, meaning we sometimes sacrifice elegance for insistence that this scene take place somehow. I don't know how else to put it, but very nice to meet you. That's as much as I have to say. It is, about the film.
That's great, Johan. Thank you very much. Nora, hello.
Hello. Yeah, it's extremely frustrating to hear about these films and haven't been able seeing them. It's a very particular situation, I think. So I made a film. The English title is Should the Wind Drop? And it's a co-production between France, where I live, Armenia, where I am from, and Belgium. The film is taking place and is shot entirely in the self-proclaimed republic, which is called Nagorno-Karabakh, which is on the first pages of the actual political troubles. I shot the film in 2018, and the reason to make the film, it's also my first feature, the reason to make this film was the this meeting with this place which exists physically, which has all the infrastructure and cities and the villages and schools and parliament, and juridically it has no existence. I'm sorry, tu peux s'il te plaît fermer vite fait? And 2 days, so the film is about the hope of recognition. And 3 days ago, this war that was proclaimed by Azerbaijan and Turkey 45 days ago ended up with the collapse of the republic and the defeat of Armenian army. So it's a very particular moment to show this film, which speaks about peace and hope, when I found myself on the ruins of everything that seemed 1 month ago still possible. But it's great that the film exists, because the country will probably stop existing.
Okay, wow. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Would you like to continue with saying a couple of things, because that was a great context that you gave. I didn't know some of the things that you just mentioned. Would you like to talk a bit about the story of the film, the actual synopsis?
Yeah. Hello.
Hi.
The country was proclaimed independent in 94, and it lived with this idea that it will be recognized. So when I went there for the first time, I was wondering what can be the center of this desire of the recognition. And the center of the film became the airport, like the international airport that they built many years ago. And they hoped that one day a plane will arrive, but as the country is not recognized, it's not allowed to have the aviation. So in fact, there is this airport which has all the employers who come to work, but there are no planes coming to the airport. And the story, we are brought into the film with a foreigner, a French man who is an international auditor of the airport, and who arrives there not really knowing what he will meet, because he's like, it's his job to go to different countries and to green light the opening of the airports. And then he arrives into this place, and through his eyes, his ignorance, and then his slight interest, and then his very strong sympathy, we discover the place, the country, the hopes, the fears, and also a bit of the war. And parallelly, there is a story of a boy who is going through the country and who carries always these huge bottles with the water, which he sells like magical water. And in fact, as people believe that it's magical water, it functions. So, well, the film all about is that if you really hope, maybe the reality can be surpassed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Nora.
Thank you.
Iván? Hello.
Hi, my name is Ívan Ίκitts. I'm director from Belgrade, Serbia. My film is named Oasis, and it's in the Meet the Neighbors competition. And this is my second feature film. The one which takes a place in the institution for the youth people with the mental handicap, with intellectual disabilities. And it's love triangle, which happens there, and very tragic love triangle. And it's made with real residents of institution as in the main roles. So they're actually not playing themselves, they're playing the roles I wrote in the scripts. So it's not like it's not documentary or documentary based or something based on their real life. It's fiction, but played by the real residents from institution where it's shot. It's a film, it's a love film. It's very passionate and enigmatic, and I don't know. It's hard for me to talk about my film all the time. It's a little bit, especially in this kind of an environment where all people represent their own work in front of the camera, and it's more like the contemporary art installation than it's a live chat. So it's better to start to communicate between each other than to just trying to represent our work in the monologue.
Okay. So one of the things that got me thinking about your films, and it kind of ties into something that Janice just mentioned about how part of her film is the kind of life that belongs to others. In each of your ways, your film is about the voice of others. And specifically, it seems to me that it's about the voiceless, whether it is the animals and the people on the fringes of society in Azar, or the teenagers in the institution in Oasis, or the unemployed and homeless in Death on the Streets, or the refugees in Who Will Be Eaten, or the kid living in a remote area in a God-forsaken country that nobody pays attention to, that sells water for a living. So in films like yours, especially, where the script is also yours, or you have been part of the script, this is usually something personal. And I was wondering with which part of yourself is your film connecting to? What part of you really, really wanted to make this film and voice the particular voices it creates?
When I first time came to the institution, like the one from the film, it was mid-2000, it's 15 years ago. And it was, for me, like very radical emotional moment where I feel that there is some kind of closed world which is not connecting to the rest of the society, which is far away from anything else in society because it's physically moved to the empty space of the suburbs, or there's nothing around. So it's kind of a life sentence without any guilt. So you are in the institution and you don't have any kind of prospect that you're gonna leave it ever. So that's that emotion that you are trapped and you are not guilt at all. It was the something which really inspired me to spend much time there and to research, to meet all the residents, to find the stories and so on. And I made the documentary back then in the same institution. Then I start to then after that I had idea to make it to like a fiction film. I had some stories from there, but I couldn't get proper formal formal way how to do it, because it's a love triangle, and it has very different perspectives of the characters. So I need to find the form how to make the film out of it. So after many years, I wrote the script and come back to the same institution and start to cast people who can play the roles I wrote. So once again, I was there for a very long time, for more than a year, and then I got the same feeling I had 15 years ago, because I recognized the people who were kids there 15 years ago, and they're mature now and in the same place, and without any hope that they will leave the institution. So it was actually the emotion I have, that you are trapped somewhere, that you don't have, that you are not guilty, but you are committed to life sentence, which was very inspiring. And then I start to think about it a little bit more, about what kind of situation in our own life we are feeling. We are sharing the same emotion, and I couldn't know that the film is shot last year, so I couldn't know that all humanity will be in the same situation like the characters in my film, that we are now governed, surveilled, managed. Somebody's telling us what to do, how to do, that there is a exterior present danger all around, and we are inside, scared to that we cannot leave our house, homes, that the life is dangerous. So it's the same what the people from institution talking to the residents of institution in my film. So, but that was similarity as the war in Nagorno-Karabakh, which happened recently. So I guess the colleague couldn't know that something like that will happen when she started to shoot the film.
So trapped without being guilty.
Yeah.
In different situations, whether it's an institution or the COVID or the war.
Yeah.
So Nora, you want to take cue from what Iván just said and talk about your personal side to the story?
Yeah, it's funny because when I hear you speaking, I live in France for a long time, and I tried to produce the film in France, and I had to defend it in front of the commissions, and it's everybody wanted the story and the personal trajectory of the characters. And now when you speak about your films, none of you spoke about like the story. It's like there is the love triangle, but it's secondary if you compare with what is the main impulse of making film. Yeah, I don't know if it's like your selection that we find each other with the being not completely aliens to each other, or it's just the Thessaloniki's film program, which is like this. But it makes the way to speak about the film easier. So for me, it took me 11 years, because I don't come from cinema, and I come from contemporary art, and I was happy to make my small things till I went for the first time to Nagorno-Karabakh. And it's very close to what said Iván, because understanding the language, understanding the problem, understanding, feeling, and loving the people, or learning to love them, I said I need to give the voice to the voiceless. So the film should be made, and it should be a fiction film. It should be a long feature film, because this is where people go. It's not like contemporary art, 300 person public. and it should go to like the best festival, because this is the only way that I can give the existence to the country that doesn't have political existence, but can have the cinematographical existence. And also that's a funny thing, which is very, how to say, it's like almost awkward, because there is something to be done. And then I had the feeling that I am the one who is able to do it, because I have this double way of double identity or double understanding, or knowing also how to address myself to an exterior public, which is not Armenian. So I really took it like, it's horrible to say it, but I took it like a mission. So definitely it's a bit egoistic and it's important for you personally, but I really carried it like a mission through all the refusals and through all the impossibilities to bring the film to the Cannes Film Festival and to have the war 2 months later. So it's, and now there is this archive which exists, and if there was no determination that I showed, this archive wouldn't have existed, which is, very complex to carry. I shouldn't talk too much about it.
Please go ahead if there's something you want to add.
I had a way to defend the film to get the finances. Then I had a way to defend the film when I wanted to shoot there, because, I wanted to shoot the country. When I was defending the film at the commissions in France or Eurimage, they were telling me, yeah, but who is the main character? And I was saying the main character is the country. You don't make a film where the main character is a country. So there was all this thing that I was trying to defend and not to lose my strong feeling that that's what should be talked about. And then the film exists, and 1 month after it starts living, the war starts, and you don't know anymore how to defend it. And 3 days ago, the war finished, and I'm again voiceless, because I can tell you the story, what I wanted to do, but I don't know what it means today for me and for the public. They are only the kind of hypothesis that I make, but I still have to learn how to how to live with this film now.
Wow. Thank you so much for this, Nora.
Thank you.
Elpiniki?
So for me, I don't know if it has to do with the voiceless. I will not say it as voiceless, because I think refugees are speaking, animals speaks with their own way, and other too many parts of the society are speaking. But I think the biggest part of the society choose not to hear. So for me, the word voiceless, I will not mention it like this. Also to my film, I present the things from our side and not from the side of refugees. I mean, there are 2 characters. The first character, the girl, helped before to many things, and she cannot continue do things for the refugees. And the other person continue very opposite, very, I don't know how to say, to do stuff, to don't be sad of the things that are happening, to really continue be solidarian with the refugees. My personal, why I did this film, it was because in my life, I was, before the 2016, the first character, the person that was not easy to do stuff, was not easy to do common stuff because I choose not to do. And after 2016, I tried to understand that I want to be the other person, to be involved, to be sure that the moment I had to do something, I was there and I did this thing. Yes, this.
Thank you, Elpinίκη. Janice, what about you?
Yes, I was just keeping some notes. I was thinking that about the voiceless one, of course, as a term, you know, how to use it and how you situate it in relation to animals or to people in the periphery, people in a kind of in different hierarchical forms. But I would say then, for example, for Kal-Azar, for me, the voiceless, it was more about the kind of making a film that it was non-logocentric, that language, either if it's narrated, you know, through a voiceover or through dialogue, or the sense of language as we understand it as humans, as kind of the form of communication we build upon language, and that we rely on the voice in order to navigate us, to understand the world, to observe the world, to approach the world and cinema itself, and how we approach a story within the cinematic context. I think it was that kind of non-logocentrism that Kal-Azar was trying to be born out, you know, to be a kind of, to create a layered world that didn't need language in any format. And I mean, that's why it really, you get some text, you get some spoken words, but they don't add to the narrative. They're just there because, you know, it's almost like sounds, so like part of some movement of the characters, some actions, but in a sense, the narrative was trying to, it was an attempt to describe a narrative through looking into details, looking into the connections, the hybrid forms that connect human bodies to animal bodies, to landscape, to our actions, to our I don't know, to our liquids, and all these kind of different layers of getting closer to things, rather than using language or the absence of language as the main, you know, way to describe a landscape. So of course the sounds of nature would prevail in Kal-Azar, but at the same time it was not really a natural landscape. It's a landscape that kind of is left in this in-betweenness, in kind of no man's land, kind of gray zones of the periphery of the city. So half urban, half rural, in no use. And also for me, it was an attempt not to be didactic. And I was thinking this word in relation to each other's works. You know, how much didactic you want to be when you attempt to describe a landscape, when you attempt to describe the histories of a place, the histories of a nation, of individual bodies in a landscape. And for me, it was an attempt to do that through the cinematography, through the image, and how the image relates to the next one and to the next one. And then I liked very much what Nora said. And it was, I think, a very good observation in how we all described it, indeed, our works, of attempting to describe our works through a non-anthropocentric perspective, in a sense, like avoiding the character, avoiding, you know, the human presence that made us build the story. And obviously there was something else that we were all interested in. Maybe it's, you know, again, the histories and the landscape and some kind of autobiographic connection, perhaps, to some of us, to those places. So I would also like to think Kal-Azar and maybe some of the other works, that some of them I have seen them like as cartographies of a place, attempting to produce knowledge and describe a place through image and through observations, that of course you need characters sometimes, but really there is something else that, you know, this background is not just a background that lies there in the film, within the film.
Thank you very much, Janice. Johan?
That sounds really nice. This sounds, what Janice finished off with is I guess in some sense what one is aspiring to be able to show all those invisible things that are surrounding the characters. I fear that at least the film that we made is constantly aiming its camera at characters, and also it's aiming its camera at the loudest nation in the world. So apropos of the voiceless, this is like the most obnoxious, loud place on earth. But I do believe that, I mean, in certain essence, so the deliberation has also been there. Why make a film from the United States about the United States from the outside? Well, in a certain essence, it's like why I like the characters themselves. It's the wrong thing to do, and these people are doing the wrong thing, and that's kind of my attraction. Our main character does the wrong thing. He refuses to take help, although it makes no sense. It's not really in this essence, it's almost a simple comedy. And for me, so that's my personal connection very much to this country, and that it seems to me to be and especially in these years, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's very hard to make a rational case for the way the United States is working right now. And I thought that would be a nice perspective on it. To actually, in essence, I thought I was making a film for all. I'm very happy to be here. I thought I was making a film that, when we set out for it, we are not setting out to please or not please some people. I thought this people would actually, I think, and I still hope, I'm looking so much forward to showing this film to the people in the United States too. I hope that, and I know that a lot of these people who are, you know, Republican, all the people that we mock a little bit, this is actually a film for them. I have a deep felt affinity towards them. And that I yearn when I go into a cinema, for example. I think I yearn for it. I guess we all just yearn for, that's why we let all the lights go out and let somebody else dictate what it is we're looking at. We're hoping that somebody will do something that we don't want to happen to us. You know, it's a little bit of a violent experience. And I thought our film, although be it simple, I look forward to showing it back to these ladies and gentlemen in the United States, in the Midwest there, as a piece of loving violence back to them, and not in a, and I have to, and I am in love with things that don't make any sense. I think that's the shortest version of it. And I think, Nora, just because I don't know any of, you might have met, I haven't met any of you, but Nora, what you were saying about when you are looking for money for a film and all these, the horrors of these descriptions that you have to go through when you have to try to make sense of a film on a certain level before you actually get, of course, you have an ambition that is impossible to put into anything else than a film. That's why you're beginning to make it. And it is really a horrific experience to have to try to put to do that. And what I want to say with that is that it is a miracle. It is truly a miracle when something survives through this whole chain of conditioning. And especially, this is a little bit European, I must say, because in the United States, some films, a lot of crap, some films get made without asking anybody for permission. And I just would like to think about the fact that in Europe, we have to ask people sometimes a lot. In the independent small films scene, we also, or the art house film scene, we also have to ask for a lot of permissions before the film gets made. And that's just an oxymoron to why I go to the cinema. I want somebody in there who's not gonna be nice to me, who didn't ask permission, who didn't ask if I want this before I go in there. I don't know if that's of any help, but that's why I like these characters. That's why I like where my film takes place, because they're acting wrong and they're so proud that they refuse to listen to reason, really. And it's not correct for me to be fond of them, but I am very fond and quite fascinated of them. Again, just in absolute contrast to the place I come from. If I were to put it very, very simply, I'd say I sometimes think that where I come from, we think we can solve how we can solve life. We know how to organize life. And if that scares me, it sincerely scares me, because I think that well, it should scare everybody, because if life can be organized, of course, then there's not much point in going ahead with it. And one thing that these sometimes somewhat stupid insistences of the United States do is they insist on things they insist on not listening to how things, they insist on doing things, they insist on not learning. I guess that's what I want to say. And that's why I like them a lot, because I would like to unlearn some things, and I would like to believe that if, you know, I will stop there, but that is in essence the personal reason behind it. Also because it's something to do with a man, but just to put it boldly, I also love the American Republican man. I think he's really attractive. Unfortunately, he is very attractive. That's why these people have success over there. And and I have I'm a little bit, I'm not ashamed to admit it, so to speak. I have this fascination, and I wanted to delve into that character in some manner. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Johan. Would anyone like to comment on anything that's been said? Because there is so richness to what you're all saying. And I can understand that somehow, go ahead, Janice.
I wanted to ask a very quick question, Ivan's, because I did see his work, to tell us a little bit, or maybe I missed it when he spoke, how did he, this is Ivan, how did he got attracted to that kind of place and of people? I mean, is it a personal story behind it, or did I miss it? Was that mentioned?
I told previously that I was quite accidentally first time in that institution many years ago.
So there is no kind of because I was trying to figure, when I was watching the film, I was trying to figure out, you know, how
I went in very accidentally and then come back after many years, because it was it's taboo of our societies, even the societies which are very like successful in dealing with the problems, don't have real cue what to do with the people with intellectual disability, because it's their position is very subversive, you know, because they don't believe in any role models which are imposed by society. It's very hard to impose any role models to the people with intellectual disability, because they have some kind of handicap, and they don't realize the, let's say, the importance of the role playing, you know, importance of the creating your persona in the human relationship, those kind of things. So they're in a kind of subversive in their openness, in their like straightforwardness. So that's what I really liked from the beginning, you know, because there is no bullshitting and the second thought and the subtext, you know, it's always straightforward, and it's sometimes breaking every rules, you know, about which, you know, about what is socially acceptable or not. And that's that's what inspired me firstly when I come in, and after that I met many people, and I heard many destinies, you know, and somehow you feel that that you become friend with them, and they let you in their own world, which is really sometimes really, I don't know, even the place to feel alive, because sometimes I can feel that our world we create, it's totally dehumanized, that the only the roots of the real ourselves is just preserved there in the institution where the rules from our world does not apply. I don't know if I answered the question, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I think when you are making a film about people who are on the margin of the society, if they are refugees or like the white man in United States who votes Republican Party or disabled people, I think there is a very important ethical question. Where do you stand? Yeah, I would be really curious to see the film because I think that it really poses plenty of questions. For example, I think about this film, The Tribe of Miroslav Sloboszypski. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yes,
yeah. And so you are in a closed world and people, they can't speak, can't hear. And do you do you play with their rules, or do you come with the rules of outside world? And maybe it's the same question for John. Do you play with the rules of white Republicans, or do you come with your own rules of like educated Danish man who has who understands the world? So I think it's really, yeah.
Yeah, you know, in my situation, there are no rules, you know.
Oh, yeah.
That's the main thing, you know. So you don't need to impose. You are not I mean, from the beginning, you cannot ever be in the role of the only people they can recognize as authority, and there are their own tutors, like in the institution. So you are not for sure somebody who is in the management of institutions. So they from the beginning accept you as a friend, you know, because they're not.
The question is different. The question that I ask myself is not the attitude you have towards them, but what attitude your camera chooses. Because I think the real power to impose something is where is your camera? Where do you look from, and where do you hear from things?
My film is completely from their point of view, so it's not at all objective or even distant as you mentioned in Tribe, which is different, completely different approachment. I would not say if it's good or it's bad. It fits, I think, that film perfectly, but it's not. In my film, it's completely different. It's from the perspective of the characters. Completely, it's more subjective cinema than the straightforward narration. So it's very close. It's intimate, let's say intimate completely. It's focused completely on the main characters. Every scene is from their perspective, not from the objective perspective.
And my perspective in the film, is a stupid perspective. It's my perspective, like a person trying to survive, like I'm trying to work out what is going on. And so it's, but I think the question is really good, Nora, especially for films that when you're making films in other countries, and quite often when Europeans go to the United States, it becomes a freak show or, you know, extravagant spectacle, which is amusing and everything else. But I think the perspective, I think one thing, if I were to blame my own film from the outside, is it is really quite primitive, because I don't think we put a lot of, I like visually more compelling films than the one we've done, even though the camera is fantastic by the camera people, but the perspective, because it is quite earnestly the perspective of somebody who maybe doesn't exactly understand what's going on, but maybe you were speaking about rules. Maybe here's a little person, myself, who's not strong enough to be a leader, who's looking for rules. So I try to work out what the rules are that are going here. And of course, I don't depict what the rules really are, because I'm not smart and I don't really have the behind picture there. But I think I think the result, at least, is that it looks a little bit different because that perspective is quite clearly there. It's the onlooker's perspective, not in any exhibiting, not as trying to make an exhibition out of it, but anyway, that's the perspective that is in our film. It's yeah. But I think the question is really relevant, and I think it's very, very strongly. I haven't seen the film, The Tribe, that you speak about, but it speaks a lot about these films, which I'm quite personally, and I'm speaking with very great care because I don't know anybody. Maybe somebody has met the films that I'm not very happy for European films in the United States normally because they seem to make either things more beautiful or more strange or more weird or more extravagant because, of course, they are exotic from our perspective. But I think, again, if anything, I hope I've afforded just a little simple, point of view, which they themselves will not feel like they are looking at goldfish, but looking at themselves in some manner that, which you can only look like. That's what we can do as filmmakers. We can actually, you'll never be able to see yourself without the help of a filmmaker from that. You need it from that third perspective, so to speak. But it's not an easy thing to achieve. Sorry. I'm done. I can't. Yeah.
Does anyone else have a comment? Because otherwise we can move on to some questions from the audience. This is addressed to Elpinίκη. Would you identify the French scene and the German scene as surrealistic? And your films, I presume, there's a couple of scenes in Elpinίκi's film that are in French and German.
I think they are surrealistic because it's really different what is happening in these scenes comparing to the whole movie. But I think the dialogues inside these two scenes, for me, are the most realistic dialogues in the whole film because it has to do with how French government treats two countries the colonialism, for example, of French country to other countries, and also German scene is a little bit what also the government, not the German people, of course, a small history of what have done, what is her point of view now with the whole refugee thing, what was the point of view before many years with the Greece. So for me, it's really realistic, the dialogues, but in a surrealistic way, so it will be more funny or more easy to accept the audience.
Thank you for explaining this. Okay, there's one for Johan, which reads, my first thought was, okay, this is Trump's USA, but later I realized that there's always been a side like this to America. Did the parallel to the Trump era interest you? And are you hopeful for the future?
Yes, we avoid saying this name. The film ends in Atlantic City, right where he ends his life is under Trump's ruins of his thing. So his name was all over the place, but we didn't ever film it. So of course he's everywhere, but he's, he is like Beelzebub. We don't want to mention his name too much. Am I hopeful? This is definitely, the context of Trump, but I must say yes, but this is nothing to do with Trump. This film, the idea for it started under Obama. I was showing the last film that I finished at a festival in Chicago and visited these areas, and that's where the idea came from. And nothing has changed there. And unfortunately, and many of us probably have been there, first of all, this is a perspective of the Republican, or what you want to call these middle American white people that I don't think we often see because we ascribe them to some simplistic political understanding. But this has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It has nothing to do with, it has something much more fundamental in the United States. of which Trump is merely a tool they used. I don't want to speak any more about him, but I don't think these things will change. I think that there's something, I don't think the United States is a country. I think it is a state of being that you can, I can keep eating something for a long time, but I'm gonna, like sometime I'm gonna have exhaustion, you know? And the United States hasn't, I don't think it has ever really, of course it hasn't really existed. It's supposed to be this project that keeps going on, but it's gonna be, it is very, very exhausted. It has been running a very, very high sugar high for a long time. And the sugar high is, of course, that they feed themselves these ideas from the European Enlightenment that they catchphrase quote. And so they're running in a certain, on some very superficial and empty illusion of a country which doesn't really exist, but that's extremely beautiful from my perspective. I think that's really attractive. I like, I don't know who was it who says, who is selling water to Nora in your films. You said some miracle magician is traveling through the landscape and selling people water, telling them it's magic. Well, I love such people. They are my uncles and people who traveled through my landscape as a child, you know? And they were always men, by the way. I was raised by women, but every time a man came in through the door, he was, the women would go, hey, wow, you're such a, they would pump up his ego as if it were with a big balloon. And then he would be surprised and then they'd send him out the door again, so to speak. And he would, they would be ebbing us on as men to be miracle salesmen or people who profess things which don't exist, as a certain theatrical characteristic to that. That's just a side note, but it's a sense of maleness which I can recognize from where I come from, which is not productive at all, which definitely has plays a big role in the United States. They have to, you know, the sense of believing in something absurd is, yeah, that's really, actually is really, really connected to being, to maleness in my perspective. Just another side note. I know I'm getting lost, but it's, it really is very, very connected. As I say, again, I was raised with women, and it seemed to me that that all the men I saw in my upbringing, not all of them were hopeless, but a lot of them were hopeless. They had to proclaim something that wasn't true, and they were playing a role in a certain part. And I found that I found that attractive because everybody, all boys who grow up without fathers, they are very dangerous because they can turn into fascists because they are looking for father figures, you know? But that's a little bit my perspective in the film too. I've just tried to include it. But do I have hope from the United States? Yes, the people are very, very good, wonderful people. It's the country doesn't exist. It is terrible in this. Let's not speak too much about the political, but on the ground, I have no hope that this new president will change anything at all, if that's what if the question was at all. I don't think at all. And the frustrating thing is, like the people in this film and all over the United States, there are very, very, very good, very, very engaged citizens who, for reasons that are too large to go into now, don't get through these totally absurd political canals that exist in the United States. So it doesn't exist as a country, and I don't have much hope of it realizing itself in the immediate future, but that's all right.
Thank you very much, Johan.
Pray for the USA.
There is a member of the audience who thinks that you should start a podcast. So you have your first podcast.
Okay.
And at this point, I think we don't have any time left. So I would like to thank everyone for being here today, and for the members of the audience. There were some more questions, but maybe we'll do it again and have you all with us. Hopefully in person next time.
Yes, hopefully.
So it was lovely meeting you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll be here tomorrow at 5 for the final Director's Corner meeting. So whoever wants to join us can visit the YouTube channel. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Τέλεια.